In this video, I will share proof that there is an incredibly high probability likelihood that we will see Bitcoin retest $100,000 or at least very, very close to it and perhaps even a bit above within the next month or two at most. Other than that, I want to once again let you know that we do have our sale going on for Cyber Monday, Black Friday, whatever the hell you want to call it, the holiday season with the code BLACKED20. I'll write it over here because it is the last couple days for this one. It will end tomorrow. That is blacked actually in all capitals. And then the number 20. It is actually very important to spell it properly, which I just messed up a couple times in a row, but it is blacked, and then the number is 20 right there for you. The link is in the description below for Teachable. 20% off of any one of the programs or services is available to you until the end of Friday tomorrow. Anyways, let's start it off with just that front-loaded information. Then I'll go into the super nerdy stuff as to supporting reasons why I do believe that we will see $100,000 at some point, likely in December, maybe at latest January. But ultimately, I am looking for Bitcoin to kind of dig its heels in here, not go lower than what we saw in November, although perhaps a retest around the current lows, but ultimately resulting in a greater bounce, again, close to or perhaps even exceeding by a little bit that $100,000 number. It is based in part off of this setup right here. The monthly MACD has crossed the downside for the first time in this cycle. That is not a good sign overall. However, as we'll go over in a moment, there is a very repeatable pattern that we have seen throughout Bitcoin's history. But anyways, here are all the previous times that we've seen the monthly MACD cross the downside in Bitcoin's history. These are all of the green vertical bars right here. And you can notice that this was essentially after the all-time high for that cycle was put in. However, after that cross happened, two things happened in a very repeatable fashion every fucking time. Anyways, we'll start it off with the 2014 saga over here. You can see Bitcoin did get the monthly MACD cross the downside. What happened after that? Bitcoin came down to that yellow 21 EMA. And what happened after that? Bitcoin retested the red 5 EMA. Now, actually, it retested that 5 EMA first before testing the 21 EMA. And in fact, actually did both of those things twice. But ultimately, I want to focus on the very, very important point here. There was a test to that red 5 EMA after that cross happened. That is a repeatable pattern that we are looking at as of right now. Of course, when we go to 2017, same thing. Monthly MACD crossed the downside. Bitcoin actually rallied up to the 5 EMA on that same month. And then the next month did the same thing again, tested it once more, and then came down to the 21 EMA and then got held there for the next few months and then actually had its final flush out into the lows of 2018. Then again, on the next MACD cross in 2019, December, we do see Bitcoin was testing the yellow 21 EMA at that point. What happened after that? Bitcoin bounced up to that red 5 EMA once again, actually exceeding it by a pretty decent margin right here as well. But what happens naturally after that? We get the big bad retracement down to that green 55 EMA on the monthly. So again, the repeatable pattern here, as we'll see once again in 2021, 2022, monthly MACD crossed the downside based off the yellow 121, based off the 21 EMA right here, the yellow moving average, and then a bounce occurs to the red 5 EMA every fucking time that we've seen this in the past. And I believe that this current iteration is not much different. We can see right here, the monthly MACD has already crossed the downside. Bitcoin is already basing off of the yellow 21 EMA. What we are missing within this equation is that test to the red 5 EMA, which is where 99,676 as of this moment. Now, that's naturally going to change. And again, we actually have seen in all previous instances, Bitcoin, getting a decent move above that red 5 EMA. So it's a minimum target. Like I said, in every instance, we have seen a move, somewhat higher, I guess. In some cases, like not that much higher, but yeah, at least a small little wiki above. And of course, after that, then yeah, the real downside did emerge. But that is why I do say, somewhere around 99 to $100,000, very, very likely, maybe even a little bit above $100,000, very likely within this next month or two. So sometime in December, I think makes a lot of sense, as we'll go over a little bit later when we get into the nerd stuff. But if you're just looking for the front-loaded information, there it is right there for you. Before we move on, I completely forgot to mention, Elsa is dealing with an ungodly amount of emails right now. She will get back to everyone as always. However, she might need about 48 hours. I would even give her longer than that right now, to be honest. She's like, she is a crazy Finnish person who has this like super high work ethic, but she puts so much fucking pressure on herself to get everything done like immediately when it's just an impossible job to do. So please give her a little bit of grace during this period. It is, it has been rather, busy. And of course, that is because, we have a sale going on, and that code is BLACK20 again. Can't miss one opportunity to shill that one. Anyways, yeah. So like I said, within December or January, I do expect that test to happen. probably in December, as we'll go over a little bit later. But yeah, if it happens in January, maybe that target's a little bit lower. We still probably see a little bit of a wick above. So 100,000 bucks, kind of like a good, just general round even number. Now I want to repeat that this does not mean that Bitcoin can't, come back down and play at short-term time frame pullbacks. We are talking about a monthly or bi-monthly move right now. So for the redacted morons out there in the world, just unsubscribe because you won't understand this next point. Short-term timeframes can ebb and flow, obviously. Higher-term timeframes, I would be looking at these as major points of interest for price before looking for any sort of, sizable move really in either direction. And hey, it could very well be that Bitcoin does, salvage itself here and perhaps not just go to 100,000 bucks, but carry on with the bull market. We'll go over what that instance would look like later. I do think it's a lot lower probability because of reasons that we've spoken about many times over the past couple weeks, but you always need to have some sort of an invalidation point. But in the past, anytime we have seen that MACD cross the downside happen, that red 5 EMA has been tested within about 1 month. In fact, let me put my drawing tools back on here. Yeah, okay, let's start over here. Boom, next month tested, right over here. Next month tested, this one over here. Next month tested, this one over here. Next month tested. Yeah, so within the next month, every fucking time. So I do look at that as actually a pretty good indication that we will see this move in December. And as we'll go over in a moment, that there is many reasons to corroborate that story. Let's start off, however, with some daily price action statistics for the old nerds out there. And yet another scalpable opportunity as Bitcoin does bounce off at the bottom end of the average returns range lows, which was 91,735. Again, if you're looking for an intraday scalping tool, the historical price action statistics indicator, which is part of the caretakers indicator suite, which is in the teachable link in the description below, the green one basically is what I'm referring to. We've seen these, we have seen these scalpable moves so many fucking times. This one already up almost $1,000 from that number. I would argue, however, again, I would not be getting very greedy with these moves. $300 to $500 price action bounce off of any one of these ends is, I think very high probability. More than that, it's icing on the cake. However you want to trade that is up to you. That's your that's your fucking issue to figure out how you actually want to create a strategy around it. I'm just showing you that there is indeed an edge there once again, and we saw it yesterday as well to the upside. Bitcoin, sold off a little bit on the top side test. Anyways, if Bitcoin does head up to the top side of the average returns range high for Thursday, that would be a price point of about 95,250. So if you do see Bitcoin up around there intraday, I would be looking for a pullback on the first pass. Second pass, perhaps not so much. But as of right now, I do think that today is kind of, I don't actually really expect to see that much action today. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to get into some more reasons as to why Bitcoin is just, it's in a bouncy region, meaning that I don't expect it to go lower than the November lows. That does mean we could see moves close to the November lows, just no closures below the November low of 80,500 or so. And one of them, or starting off over here, would just be looking at a momentum oscillators. We're seeing daily all the way up to a 5-day time frame starting to turn up right here. Daily time frame is showing upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above 86,400. It's well above there right now, so not bad. 2-day time frame is also freshly up, losing the bearish control, or sorry, the critical bear zone right there, but still in the bearish control zone to be fair. As long as Bitcoin's above 82,150. So again, looking good, building from lower levels here on the pivots. The 3-day time frame also going to have its first cross the upside in a long time. If Bitcoin can finish, I believe tomorrow, Friday, above 84,200. The 5-day time frame, which is actually not closing this week, but will be next week, is showing a pivot at 94,000 bucks. It might not close above there on this current period, but I imagine when the new period opens, that pivot to change momentum back onto the upside will be much lower. So it will be a lot more reasonable to expect that, we will get that cross. The weekly time frame is going to be very similar to the 5-day here. That one's pivot at 94,000 bucks. That one closes tomorrow, obviously. So, just numbers keep your eyes on because ultimately, when we see all of these time frames align with each other, I'm looking for just a general move in that direction. We can also corroborate that with some more evidence over here, looking at our higher term time frame RSI, because there is potential for hidden bullish divergence, as the 10-day RSI has a much lower low than what we saw on the April lows, and also, of course, in the actually 2024 lows over here. So there is potential for hidden bullish divergence. Does that mean Bitcoin's going to go back to prior all-time highs? Not necessarily, but it does mean that Bitcoin's, likely to bounce here if it can confirm a local low. And in this case, it would be a higher low compared to, again, the 2025 April lows, and then, of course, the summer lows of 2024 over here. Anyways, how would you confirm a local low? Well, it's actually quite simple in this case. Really just crossing back up and close above about 95,500 or so. We'll do it on any sort of a higher term time frame. And at that point, somewhere around these major moving averages, which is that yellow and the yellow and the green moving averages, the 21 and the 55 respectively, is very, very likely a bounce target. And guess where those are? A little bit above $100,000 as of right now. So, more things that do suggest, hey, yes, Bitcoin may indeed be bearish on the very high term timeframes if we fast forward, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out from here. However, in the short term / medium term over this next month, maybe even 2 months, I would be looking for Bitcoin to at least mount a bit of a bounce attempt. And hey, like I said, there's potential for a reversal. Let's actually go over that condition right now. Super simple. If Bitcoin can trade back above and close above the most recent lower high, which was 107,500 or 107,500. 107,500 is a number that I'm fucking trying to say. Holy shit, I'm actually a redact. Wow, my dyslexia kills me every day. I can feel it too. I feel like there are two hallways, or there is a door that leads into two different hallways, and it's like I want to go to the right side, but my tongue goes to the left side. I'm like, wait, oh fuck, I can't speak. I can't speak, and I'm making a video on YouTube speaking to people about talking, kind of. Anyways, I'm not going down the right lane again. Anyways, so yeah, there's that and there's that. Of course, I do want to get now into some more fun stuff as to, bounce likelihood and timing of this starting probably today, tomorrow. Again, just not going lower than the November lows. We may very well see a return somewhere down around there or a pullback, but generally looking for upside from here. One of them is based upon the moons. The fucking moons are back in. Those damn witches are at it again, and we are getting the traditionally more bullish moon. I'll show you just kind of what this looks like without all of my drawing tools on there, but looking at it here, these sort of whitish or grayish moons have generally correlated with periods or about a 2-week period of upside price action. Not always. Again, if we go ahead and actually backtest this, just simply opening when it's that moon and then closing when the next moon happens, which is certainly not an optimized way of doing this. But if we were to just do it like that over the past 10 years, this would actually have been, a decent-ish strategy. Is it the best strategy? Obviously not. But it does give kind of an upwards bias during this next 2-week spread beginning kind of today / tomorrow. So that leads us into the 3rd week of this month of December, more or less. So what I'm actually most interested in, however, is of course the trade analysis from this using, again, the quant prime service to backtest. But it's actually what we used over here too, or sorry, this is the first time we've actually used this today. I'm going to get into a chart a little bit later that actually we are going to present something slightly new in this regard using this. But yeah, looking at the average winning trade throughout this period, 13.25%. Looking at the average losing trade during this period, about 8%. Because we have a time frame for this actually is super, super useful because it gives us areas of interest for both the upside and the downside within this next 2-week period. So to the upside, if Bitcoin were to play out a 13% move, that would put Bitcoin at about, 105. Okay, pretty fucking good. And again, there's some variance in these. Not going to be exactly 13. Obviously, again, not speaking to the fucking redacts of this channel, of which I am one of them. But goddamn, if you don't understand these things, just get off this channel. It's going to confuse you. But yeah, it might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit less. But again, we're getting something around that $100,000 number. So I look at that as, good confluence there. On the other side, however, if we are going to perhaps see a loss of about 8%, where does that put Bitcoin? Back down around about $85,000. And again, we're looking at a time period between now and the next 2 weeks, which would be between, the 5th to the 19th, more or less. So something like that, we can kind of expect around these numbers sometime within this 2-week period. That's generally how this does play out. And again, that's why actually I don't care so much about the actual moons. I just care about the statistics that follow them. Anyways, on top of that, if I can get to my next chart, also kind of suggesting that Bitcoin, wants to bounce up decently here, or at least has the opportunity to certainly do it, is the 5-day HPDR. We actually called this one out a little bit on yesterday's video, but I'll re-explain it here. So anytime price action deviates significantly from the median, which is this current line that my cursor is tracing, on the chart right now. Whenever price deviates a lot from that, getting below the 61.8 level at minimum, and in this case, Bitcoin got all the way down to 77.6% of historic returns range low, that initiates the potential for a setup where we can experience some mean reversion for Bitcoin, in which we then go ahead and reference the BBWP indicator, which represents volatility, and wait for this to go into a contraction phase, which right now I believe that it is. We're getting a downward slope on this, and it's also below the moving average as well. So this certainly is a potential setup here alongside the 5-day HPDR, actually, getting a twist to the upside there as well after hitting some pretty max lows here. To put this in perspective, it's the lowest levels that we've seen since 2022. That might be a signal in and of itself, by the way, like not a good signal, I'll say, for the BULAs long term. But in the short term, this does set up the potential, the likelihood, in fact, the high likelihood of a mean reversion play targeting the median on the HPDR for the 5-day time frame. Right now, that median is obviously very, very high. It's 115,000 US dollars or even above there. That does not mean Bitcoin's going to bounce all the way up there today, tomorrow, during this period. No, the way that this setup works is that I look at Bitcoin as extremely likely to test the median of this same time frame on the HPDR before ever closing below the lowest low of this current move, which is about 80,500. And this can take, many periods. So naturally, the more periods that do transpire here, the more that this HPDR median is going to come down. I imagine, just kind of like eyeballing this and just, with some long-term history with this indicator now, you're probably going to see it come down around here to about $99,000 to $100,000. Again, if and when Bitcoin actually tests it, that is when that setup is fulfilled. So I'm basically not looking for lower than November before retesting the median at some point, probably in this month of December, probably even within this next 2-week period, if I really had to guess. But yeah, high probability does not mean a certainty, but I do think that that does play well with the rest of what we've been looking at. On top of that, just on the topic of targets here, we can draw a pretty simple Fibonacci retracement, and we can see that some areas of interest are specifically overhead. We can see the 38.2 level is coming in around $98,000. That's also very close to that green 55 EMA. So a good targeted region for this as well. And then the 50% retracement level, which is a very, very common level to be retested on any sort of a trending move, is around 103,450. I would say that these are, quite likely. One of these, or perhaps in between, something like this, to put the blue box in there, shove that fucking blue box in there, and there you go. At the most, maybe the 618 level, which is all the way at 108,850. I have my doubts on that one, but hey, if it happened, that's where I actually start to change around my opinion anyways, back above this high, that's 107.5. So just an area of interest there, again, for an upside bounce. Other than that, I did want to present a slightly new setup here. It's a variation of a setup that we've gone over many times on this channel, which is the 5 EMA versus the 21 EMA setup, which typically leads towards a move to the 55 EMA. So the red crossing the yellow leads to a move towards the green. And in this case, we actually are going to look at it from the opposite lens. On this one, we actually just saw it on the 12-hour time frame, which is why I was there, but now it's going to likely transpire on the daily as well. It's not quite set up just yet. You can see the red moving average is very close to the yellow moving average. And if Bitcoin, closes another day above like $93,500, I think you very well might see these ones cross. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but in the not so distant future, this is something I'd keep an eye out for. If you see this moving average, the red one, cross the upside, okay, now there is a very high probability of a move to the green moving average, which is where 99,300 as a minimum target, to follow that. That, again, does not mean Bitcoin can't pull back in the short term and then play out that move. But ultimately, I would be looking for this as a minimum target to be fulfilled to the upside. This one, again, is not fired off just yet. And this would be a terrible setup to play out long term. I can show you the results with this using the Quant Prime service to back test it. If you would have traded this throughout the whole history of Bitcoin, you would have terrible results. It's not a good setup to actually trade. It's a great setup, however, for judging directional buys on YouTube videos. And we've seen it play out many times here. Even when it fails, it is useful. This one fired off over here. Bitcoin tests the 55 EMA over here. If you would have played it as a setup, that would have been a loss. But again, for general directional analysis, it kept you honest in this case because Bitcoin did get another move to that 55 EMA before continuing lower over time. So that's kind of my point on this. Same thing over here in this case. If we do see that cross the upside, which actually we can backwards engineer exactly what price point would be needed for that to happen today. It doesn't need to happen today, but just, as we get new days, we can update this number. But right now it's $95,000. Tomorrow that number should go down, I would imagine, decently, unless if Bitcoin like completely shits the bed below about $91,000. But for right now, it's a setup that is potential. It's not fired off yet, but it's something worth paying attention to because it can help time this move as well. That's what I'd say about that. Anyways, other than that, I think that we have pretty much gone full in on this video. We can go check out the quantum wave bands. Quantum wave bands still holding this trade from $86,000. It is more than $6,000 in profit as of right now, and at one point it was about $8,000 or a little bit more than $8,000 in profit. Look, again, if you do have this indicator, the quantum wave bands or this strategy, which, by the way, you can also apply the black coupon too. One more chance to shill, baby, before Friday. But yeah, when you have this sort of a setup, you can play it as you want. So if you do want to take profit over here, fucking by all means do it. You can just use this as sort of like a guideline, sort of like, bumpers on a bowling lane that keep you honest. They keep you from getting wrecked. They tell you at the very least, when to exit a trade that's about to go very fucking sour. So you don't get, you don't lose all your fucking equities. But you could also, look at these entry signals as kind of like a call to action to pay attention and say, hey, there might actually be a better entry coming up here that I'm interested in, which indeed did happen actually over here. You could have got about $2,000 better entry. And then on the other side as well, if you do see, very nice move, in my opinion, as we've already seen. I mean, that is a $10,000 move from top to bottom, basically. Might as well just take some profit. That's a personal opinion. Again, you can play it in whatever way that you deem necessary, but I would be saying, hey, you can also put your own spin on this as well. Anyways, other than that, I think it's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. Again, it's the last couple days of our sale for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It applies to anything in the teachable link description below, that green link that's at the top of the description, even to the Crown Trading Bible and even to the LTI, which actually I forgot to show here. But yeah, well, actually, maybe this is actually quite important to show on this one, because my dip buying program, again, this is just designed for very, very long-term holds. These are not active trades. If you do this on leverage, you will get fucked, but it did fire off buy signals over here. And by the way, I do give out my settings for this particular setup here, and that is included in the teachable content. So, I did buy in the mid to low 80s for Bitcoin. Do I expect this to be instantly I mean, right now it is profitable, but these are positions meant to be held for 5 to 10 years. So, if you are looking for a quick trade, this is not for you. If you're looking at it from a more long-term investment lens, then perhaps this is something worth checking out. It's, relatively inexpensive, I would argue, and you can program it however you desire as well. You can program it to be significantly more aggressive or more conservative. I also even have my macro low settings for that in that program. But yeah, it's there for you for the long-term investors, because that's kind of what I'm becoming myself at this point as well. But yeah, just following up on this, because anytime that we have gotten a signal throughout this current cycle, those have been the macro lows. So, if you do want to kind of make an argument that, hey, the cycle is not over, there's some things in there for sure, but I do believe at this point, there are several technical indications that I personally just don't want to ignore, but I'd be very, very happy to ignore if Bitcoin does pop up above about, let's just call it 108 at this point, make a round even number. So basically, wrapping up this video, throughout the month of December, more or less, I'm looking for Bitcoin to bounce up somewhere around $100,000. If Bitcoin starts to close above 108, which is far stretch, but possible, I suppose, I would say I'm actually going to switch around to being bullish and not looking at this as a likely bull trap. But until that happens, I do think that this move to 100,000 or even above a little bit has a high potential to be a bull trap. Again, for all of the reasons that we discussed over the past couple of weeks, I'll probably do like a big video documenting all of the nasty signals long term. But for right now, there's a chance. Everything does have a at least somewhat of a probability to in this case carry on with the long-term trend. So that is there as well. But yeah, like I said, short-term, medium-term, generally bullish, maybe a retest of the current lows, but I don't think you're going lower. Generally, it's going higher. Then we get to play the game of, is this going to be a lower high and rejection, or is this actually reversing, which again, 108 is my line in the sand for that. All right, other than that, want to wish you the best as always. Take care, much love, and just one more reminder that our sale ends tomorrow. There'll be no more sales after that for this year. Actually, quite literally, yeah, not until the end of the year. And tomorrow we'll do another live stream. So all good in the hood on that. As always, I want to wish everyone the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Friday.